Hi, everybody.
Hey, Dan.
Hey, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, man. Sound
All
good.
right. Yeah, you sound good too. I think we both need haircuts, but we're sounding good.
Nah, I actually got one, but I didn't want to do my normal shorty short look. So
Oh,
this
yeah.
part is just, I
All
don't
right.
even know.
Sorry, I didn't mean to insult there.
That's
Mine
all
is
right.
mine's more like the Clark Kent thing coming,
I
starting to
like that,
happen,
man.
especially with these
It's like
glasses.
Harry Potter. You're covering up your little lightning bolt that you got
Right,
going
right, exactly. No, maybe. I don't know.
Keep telling people I've got my Rapunzel look on. My hair's
Oh,
so long.
wow. Look at that. That is getting there. All right. I'll give it a few more minutes to see if a couple more minutes. See if anyone else comes aboard.
on. Jennifer, you must have a good camera over there, or a light right in front of you, because I'm impressed that the windows can be behind you and we can still see you. Whenever
Right.
I had to shift sides of the desk because if I'm on the other side and the windows are open, I'm in witness protection program. You can't see who I am.
I don't know. It's a new laptop. It's not even a year old, so maybe.
I figured that's why you moved out to California, Scott. You know, witness protection.
Yeah, I'm just not doing a very good job of it, I guess.
No, you're supposed to change your identity, I think. I see Carolyn on. See if here we go. A couple more folks coming on. There we go. Okay, well, we might as well get started. We have a good group already started. And hi, Carolyn.
Hey.
Got Amanda and Taylor. Amanda's coming on. I lost Taylor. All right. So coming up to the 4th of July holiday, and we're still all sheltered in place somehow. At least we're not having to wear masks online. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Right. Technology's catching up to us.
Yeah.
Well, I'm kind of curious. It's funny because it's got these meetings that we've had almost each and every time. Somehow the conversation goes around to meetings rather than membership, and I'm kind of curious. A lot of discussion internally for us is, and even even some other things that I've been looking to get involved in. It's really hard to tell whether we actually can still even schedule in-person meetings, even going into 2021. We have our big event is January. This is for FMI, the Food Industry Association I work with. And our big event is in January. So we were lucky this year because we were able to have our big event and not really be disrupted by what was going on. Yet, as we schedule again for January in 2021, we're going for it. We're going to go for in person. It's going to be in Phoenix, Arizona, and we are hoping that that's a good decision. I'm not sure what others are doing as far as planning for their big meetings or any in-person activities.
Well, I do want to throw that out. I'm glad to everybody else, I'm glad you brought that up, Dan. I actually had a conversation. I don't know. I'm sure if most of you don't know Aaron Wallowik, you've heard of Aaron Wallowik. And I talk to Aaron on a regular basis. We do some presentations together and things. And I was talking to Aaron last week. We were just kind of catching up. And he said, I don't even know what to do right now because we're now having the conversations again about, do we have events? Do we cancel events? Do we postpone events? Do we turn our face-to-face events into virtual events? And I think that from a membership perspective and from a meetings perspective, this is probably the hardest time any of us has ever had to go through. And I know that sounds like a bit of an exaggeration and a bit extreme, but the reason I say that is because there is no certainty. There's none. I mean, in California, which I think you guys all know I'm in California now, we pretty much opened back up, right? Like not everything. There's some weird little things like massage therapists couldn't do appointments and nail salons couldn't do appointments, but bars opened up, restaurants opened up, everything opened up with social distancing and masks. And, you know, as much as people actually listened to those instructions, that's what it's supposed to be. Just yesterday, they announced that bars and I can't remember exactly what it was, but places that don't serve food, because a lot of the bars in California, there's no regulation that you have to serve food in your bars, are now shut down again because people couldn't control themselves and they couldn't distance themselves. So that's just another example of this uncertainty as to when are we, I mean, I don't want to be the doomsday guy. I can't imagine that we're not shutting down again soon, or portions of our economy and our businesses are shutting down again soon, because the cases are going through the roof. And I don't want to get political and say, yeah, well, you know, more testing, that's why we're finding out more cases. It doesn't matter whether it's testing or not to me. It matters the risk that we're all under. So I don't know what the answer is, and I don't even know what my point is in a lot of ways, except to say, holy cow, what do we do? And how do we make decisions? And I want to throw that out to everybody and say, if you're in that position, how are you making decisions? Or are you making decisions? Or are you just saying, we're going to keep on going until somebody says we can't?
So we're running a lot of plan A, plan B, plan C scenarios, which of course is making us really tired. But we feel like that's all we can do at this point. We're trying to focus in all of those scenarios, though. We're trying to focus on what do our members need and how would we deliver that content no matter how we're doing that. Because, you know, we know the in-person events, a lot of it is the networking and seeing people, and there's so much that beyond the educational content for an in-person event. But if we can still have some of those deliverables in a hybrid or an online version, then the event still has value. If we're not going to be able to deliver that, then we need to consider canceling it. So a great example would be we're a national organization and we have state affiliates. And our state affiliate meeting for our leaders happened right as this was coming out the gate, so we canceled it last minute. We've gone back and forth having that in person or online. It's supposed to happen in March of next year, and we're already having considerations. We don't plan that we're going to cancel it. We're very hopeful it's going to happen, but I'm already in the back of my mind thinking about, okay, how am I going to get ahead of this? So if we do have to cancel it, we've got some resources for our people.
Yeah. Anybody struggling with that fun little thing that we got going on right now?
I like Amanda's contingency planning, plan C, plan D, plan E, whatever. You know, it seems like that's the way you have to be right now. I just had a retreat with my membership team, and you know, the only thing we could plan for is the next 90 days. And really that's, you know, then we'll have another retreat and hopefully, you know, plan for the remainder of the year. And possibly into 2021, if we know what the circumstances, you know, are likely to be. We don't know what likely is anymore. And so yeah, I think that makes sense, that you at least have some planning in place, strategic planning, and then hope that, you know, you have some contingencies if that doesn't work out. I think that's the only way to do it.
I mean, I hate to say this because we all sort of joke about it in our daily lives anyways. It's Groundhog Day, right? But this is Groundhog Day. It's like, you know, and I was going to throw up a question to tie this back to membership a little bit. All right, are we starting to have conversations? Because when COVID started, it came completely out of the blue, right? Nobody predicted it. Nobody expected it. So we had to change our strategies, change our plans, change our communications about what to do and what resources to provide. Well, we've done that, right? But is anybody looking into that future of, all right, we're going to reclose again. So what are they going to need then, right? Like, are we preparing that information now just in case it happens? Right, Amanda, to make your point, you know, scenario 1, 2, 3, well, I think it's from a membership perspective, in some ways, I know this is simplifying this, but you've got scenario 1, which is we're doing what we're doing now, which is still an adaptation of what we were doing. And then now you got scenario 2, which is, hey, we're going to close again. So what is our industry going to need when we close again? And are we really, and are we like tripling our workload now? Because we're not just doing our one job with one scenario, we're doing 3 jobs with 3 scenarios. And there's no alternative in my opinion, but oh my God, you know?
So
Crazy.
I will say I'm at the American Association for Respiratory Care. So we work with respiratory therapists. So our members are right on the front lines.
Yeah.
And so for us, it's tweaked how we're thinking about things. We have dropped some projects that we were hoping to get started this year to focus on, how do we get the most up-to-date information to our members, because they're right there out in the field. To us, we have that luxury of, we know we have to do that whether everybody shuts down or not, because they're going to need this no matter what the depth of the pandemic is. So we're a little bit lucky that something that's a negative, we're trying to turn into a positive, because we know that's a resource no matter what they're going to need. And I would think, it's different for everybody, but I would think other associations, there are things your members need no matter whether you're in pandemic time or not. And maybe focusing on some of those deliverables and those services to make sure you're still meeting those needs.
Makes sense. Jennifer, Carolyn, you guys thinking in that direction, or are we still trying to digest these initial changes that we had to make?
So we spent 3.5 hours yesterday in a planning meeting for our convention, which was supposed to happen in March, in early April, and then we had to cancel it. And here we are, full steam ahead, planning for the next one. And as time goes on, I'm starting to hold back being the voice of doom and gloom, because every time I say something like, well, we're not expecting the same amount of people to come, are we? And, how else are we planning for these different situations? And I've kind of always, we're a small staff. We have 5 people. We're a small association. I come from I've only been with them for a little over a year. And I come from an association with 15,000 members where, they're doing all sorts of things. And our little association doesn't do a lot of things. We don't have a platform for virtual education. We partnered with somebody else in the past to do that on a very minimal basis. And so now we really have to jump full steam ahead into that, which is a good thing. Because we're behind on that. We re-energized our job board because, we have, our industry is actually hiring. A lot of jobs are out there, but our job board was ignored for the past several years and nothing was done about it. And we're trying to implement a lot of our members are engineers, and so they look for projects that are up for bid or they're out for RFP, and so we want to implement something like that. But those are things that cost money with our database, and on our plan for this year, we were supposed to be demoing new databases right now, and signing a contract over the summer and implementing in January, February timeframe. And now we can't do that because our convention is our biggest revenue earner and we didn't have that event. So that was my big project for the year. And so now I have to do other things, which there's, like you said, there's 3 times as much to do now. I still have to be trying to get members, add more member benefits, think ahead. Like you said, what are people going to need and how can we implement it when we don't have any money? And so it is definitely harder, and I wish we could do more. And I think that's the hardest thing.
So we did something a little different this last couple months, we're about to implement the first one because we're an individual membership association. We have about, I think, 7,100 members. Of that, 600 and some are corporate, so the rest are all individuals. We work with airports, the American Association of Airport Executives. So our services team that runs some of our big revenue generating services went out to Dallas Fort Worth Airport and pitched an enterprise membership to them. And it's sort of like what ASAE did with its organizational membership. And we're going to onboard over the next couple months over 2,000 new members. And they get like a training package with it. So most of the employees at DFW, if they want, can take advantage of this membership for a year. And I don't know what the price tag was, but it's a quick revenue generator for us. It was probably around $300,000 or $400,000 that they committed to. So we're starting to try that with some other airports, and I have run some really cool reports out of our database that show the total spend for different airports over the past couple of years, so they can use that to kind of build a new kind of proposal for them. So that's been really helpful. I don't know what we're doing with our meetings. We used to do 80 to 90 meetings a year. So we did cancel our biggest one in May, and one of our staff built a platform that we actually can run a meeting through our website that ties into our database. And we did our first online membership meeting last Friday. And so we did all of our change of the board of directors and all of our individual awards for the year. And it looks like it is literally a production. She goes through and she has to do all the transitions on the back end and make sure that the right people were talking. You know, our chair was out in Grand Rapids. Our president was here in Alexandria. So we had people all over the country that were being pulled in, and then the slides would take over, and it was really cool. It was a lot of work. I don't know if it's sustainable, but hopefully, because they're still planning to do our second biggest meeting in September in Savannah, and I don't see how they can do it, but it would be interesting, you know, to see if they can do a live and hybrid event all at the same time. So, and I saw your message, Nicole. I don't know what the turnout was, but it was fairly high. So, and we actually did voting. So that morning there was a link sent out. They were going to do voting using some sort of software, and it ended up being just a lot easier to use SurveyMonkey. Send out a link to the members who are allowed to vote at the appropriate time, tell them all to open that link. They had 2 minutes to open it, vote, and then they closed it. And that's how they did the rollover for the board this year.
Has anyone done what ASAE did and take the uncertainty out of it and just say, we're done for the rest of the year with face-to-face events? I've heard mixed reactions, and I don't want to put ASAE on the spot, but they're the only ones who I know who have, because I don't follow every association in every industry, they're the only ones who I know that have done that. Personally, I think that's great. I think that it limits your flexibility, but it also takes any uncertainty out of anybody's mind, right? It's like, you don't have to worry about attendees going, is this happening? Is this not happening? You don't have to worry about exhibitors and sponsors. You don't have to worry about speakers. It's done. Has anybody else done that or thought about doing that? Because there's pros and cons, right? There's no flexibility, but there's also no uncertainty.
So our biggest event, our Congress event, is in November. And so that's really our only in-person event that's left for us as an organization. And I know talks are just happening all the time. As a staff, we're hopeful that the decision will be made soon for us and for our members, so people can decide, okay, what are we doing from here? As an attendee, I'm a member of a couple of different associations, and I know like there's a conference coming up in September, and I've had discussions with my team about, you know, even if it still happens, I'm in Texas, it's a hot spot, probably not going to go. So I think, you know, it's good we just had a meeting with our affiliates about them having their events. And there is something to be said about the stress level if you know, like, okay, this is the direction we're going. And it's good for the attendees too, because they're not having to make that decision themselves. You've already made it for them.
Yeah, I think that's, as a speaker, that's another question, right? It's not an easy, I mean, Amanda, you and I were just in the chat, and I'm supposed to speak at TSAE, and Aaron Hernandez from TSAE, Texas Society, he reached out with, all right, you guys, here's your speaker agreement. Oh, and by the way, we don't even know if this is going to happen face to face. So, you know, if at any time you don't feel comfortable coming face to face, let us know and we'll figure that out. Or it may be virtual. So if your session needs to be tweaked a little bit to make it virtual, please start thinking about that now. And again, it's like, all right, we've now covered every possible scenario, you guys. And at some point they got to make a decision. I can't make that decision for them, but it's just, it's so weird that it's just floating out there. And he was very honest about it and said, it may happen face to face. It may not. We'll let you know. But for now, plan on being here. I haven't booked any tickets. I'm not flying from, I've already got credits from all of my other flights that I had booked before the first time we got shut down. So I'm not booking anything, but it's questionable what the right strategy is. You know, I don't think there is one perfect strategy because it just leaves us floating out there with what's going on.
Sure. I mean, and for me, it's also a personal decision because my husband has some of the issues you don't want to have and have this disease, right? And again, I work with respiratory therapists. I hear the worst of the worst. So I'm almost paranoid about it compared to some people, I feel like. So just, you know, it's a tough time. I'm very disappointed about thinking about not going. But I just realistically at this point, I don't know how I can. And I feel like a lot of our members are in the same boat. You know, ASAE, it was kind of a relief and a disappointment when they said, okay, yeah, we're not going to have it.
Do y'all think that once schools reopen and the format of that is going to impact meetings and attendance? I mean, if I'm here right now, if I'm here 2 days a week with my kids being remote, it's not like, my husband's a cop. He can't stay home and manage a courtroom on Zoom. So I have to be here. That's just how it is. So.
No, I definitely agree. You know, and so like, I don't have kids, but my brother's kids, their school district is already saying, all right, in the middle of July, you're going to decide for the semester whether you do in person or online. And that's just, I can't even imagine.
Yeah, and we had a town hall. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Saying you got to decide, you got like 2 weeks, decide what you're doing. Are your kids coming to class or are they not? It's like, I don't freaking know. Yeah. You know, I don't know.
Yep. I watched a town hall last night with our superintendent and he was like, look, this is the draft. I don't know. He goes, it could change. Just bear with us. You know, there's some level of sacrifice here for everyone. I think he's getting a lot of messages from parents who are like, this sucks. I don't want to do this. Well, duh. No one wants to do it. But I think it's going to impact us all. So.
Jennifer, what you say I think is huge because from our standpoint too of our school districts, all the different counties are deciding what they are and aren't going to do currently, right? So if you do have parents that have to stay home with kids or have to find daycare for kids, the last thing they're going to want is that pressure pull of, do I need to go to my annual conference this year? You know, I mean, Dan and I were just having this conversation earlier. I have a conference I was supposed to be at this year, canceled for May, postponed to September, canceled for September, moved to April of next year. And to be quite honest, at that point in April, Dan and I were like, what are we even thinking for April? So it's, you know, that push and pull where I think it is a smart move to be able to say, we're done for the year, which relieves that pressure on your members, knowing that many states are going to be having this open up. It's just one less thing for them to have to worry about.
And as a staff person, it gives you time to then focus on, hey, we're going to offer these things virtually, or we're not going to offer this year, but we're going to do this instead. I think we all recognize everybody's having a tough time of it. So being transparent in that communication, but then also, as associations, we're supposed to try to make it easier for our members. So how are we connecting those dots for them? Because if I'm overwhelmed about, hey, my kids are at home, I don't need to have to think about like, oh yeah, I have to figure out that I'm going to take this CE to get this certificate to do this. Like we're focusing on, we've got different certifications, right? So one of the things we've kind of shifted some of our marketing to is, hey, here's a CE package that will give you what you need to fulfill your certification requirements. It's not anything new. It's just a different way of us advertising it.
So I'm going to take a quick different shift and take on this. Okay, that when you think about membership, think about like when pretty much all the organizations I worked with or for that our events, we had a small percentage of our members actually involved in in-person events. Now I'm thinking this might be a boon for member engagement if we're able to, shift things virtually. That, it's like, again, I kind of mentioned on a previous call, ASAE did not have 3,000 people at their MMNC conference in the past, other than this year. That it was free and virtual. So very different. But what if you had an event that was pretty much the same but virtual, and maybe you change the registration price maybe a little bit, maybe not a lot, but maybe a little bit, but you got 25% or 40% more people engaged and actually participating and registered for that event. Isn't that a good thing?
Agreed.
Yeah, member engagement wise, I think there might be actually some great opportunities here for the organizations to actually get more engaged that weren't engaged before, because more people are very familiar and becoming more familiar with this format that we're using right now, and they're comfortable with it, and they've had to be whether they like it or not. And why not? Why not do more of this and do it, maybe provide the content maybe a little differently, but for the most part, why not?
I mean, if I could jump in here now, I'm on the vendor side. For those of you who don't know me, I represent a full service commercial printing and mailing company here in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area. I jump on these calls so that I can learn more about what you guys are going through, because there's no way for me to engage otherwise. The only way that and unfortunately I have to jump to another call here momentarily, but I just wanted to throw this out there. I've noticed, because I'm involved with Toastmasters, that we've actually seen more guests and more of our members attending our virtual events that weren't necessarily coming to our in-person events. So I can only add to the conversation virtually from that perspective. And I've seen a lot of prospective customers that I'm trying to engage with, as well as current customers. They seem to be making more decisions to stay in the virtual world and going forward with a conference or meeting, but doing it virtually. And that could be either this year or moving it to next year and still going virtual, because there's just, as Scott alluded to earlier, there's just too much uncertainty that if we go virtual, if we need to alter our decision, we can attempt to do that at some point, but let's push it out at least 12 months, because that gives us more flexibility to make those plans. And to your point, ASAE probably did the smart thing by taking it out and saying, okay, now we at least remove that uncertainty. We know we're going to be virtual, and we can at least move forward. The community knows everything's virtual, and they can set what those monetary expenditures look like in terms of what they charge for virtual. Now, I don't know what those numbers should be. I'm not here to guide or advise in that respect, although I am a big believer that free is good to a point, but at some point, you got to put some skin in the game in order to get value out of it. If you're only in it for free, then you're really not involved in it, and you're just kind of putting a toe in the water as opposed to jumping in the whole pool. That's just Alan's philosophy and perspective on free versus charging. What you charge, I don't know. There's obviously got to be some associated cost involved with running a virtual conference. And we've actually seen some engagement as it relates to sending out fulfillment kits with lanyards and other promotional items that promote the virtual event, making you still feel like you're at an event, but not at the event.
I was just going to ask you that, Alan, especially, I don't know that you need to hop off, but I was just about to ask you, to make it more real and, maybe make the registration fee a little bit more, justifiable on their end. Is there something that, that can be packaged and sent off to registrate, registered registrants that are part of hybrid or, virtual events that can do that. I mean, you can have like an exhibit hall in a box, basically,
Yeah, exactly.
Samples and, trinkets and all the other things that you would gather anyways by walking through that exhibit hall. You could create that for them in a way. And maybe maybe it's even an experience as you open the box, you try to figure out, there's a certain order to it or so, it's got to be more creative. People have to think a little bit outside that box to actually, do something that's of value for
and that's
folks.
also Dan, to your point, where you can use sponsorships to help sponsor the promotional items that actually drive engagement for both sides of the organization. One to drive to their business, but the other in supporting the conference or whatever the conference happens to be about. Unfortunately, I'm glad I was able to jump on today because I'm going to put this as a standing appointment, because this is why I jump on, is to learn more about what you guys are going through. That helps me just better understand how to engage with potential customers like yourself, and just because my experience is different and my story is different than each other person that's working virtually from home that has different responsibilities. Obviously, from a sales and business development, I'm looking at it from one perspective, which is entirely different, and quite honestly, it's equally as challenging to engage with all of you on the call, because you're trying to figure out what's my next step, because plan A is turning to B to C to D virtually the same day or the next day. You don't know what's up and what's down. So I'm just trying to learn from everybody that's on here. So unfortunately, I got to go. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks for jumping on.
Keep me in the loop, because I do want to continue to join the group. I appreciate it.
Sure, you bet. Thanks for jumping on. Always welcome.
All right. You got it. Thanks, see you, everybody. Have a great day.
All right. Thanks. You too.
I was just going to jump in real quick. I am one of the founders of a data analytics group for association people. And we are trying our August event using a platform called Event Farm. And you actually create your own little avatar, and you can move from room to room. And I'll pop a link in here just if you guys want to see it. I'm curious to see how it works. But we're going to try and do rooms for a couple of different analytics topics. And should be kind of interesting.
Yeah, and I've actually attended a couple things, a couple events like that, where they had an exhibit hall and a lobby and all these different places that you could go and everything. And I hope it's better. It's been a few years since I did that, and I hope it's better than that experience. It basically is like, which chat room are you going to go and talk, and how many chat rooms can you manage at once? And it's not as simple as it sounds, but I'm hoping that, again, the technology has gotten better in some way, because it was just kind of like this, but a little bit more scattered, I think. So I'm hoping that's better.
The link to their kind of overview video.
Yeah.
It was kind of funny to watch. I mean, I don't know if you guys have seen that Human Fall Flat game where it's like a jiggly, my son plays it. Anyway, it just kind of reminded me of that. But you can move around, and as you move, farther away or closer to people, the sound increases or decreases. There are, if you're in the exhibit hall portion and there's a blue outline, it mutes everything around you once you go inside that booth. It's kind of cool.
That is cool.
So I thought it was an interesting thing, and we're not doing it for my association, but we're going to try it with other membership and analytics people and see what happens.
All right.
Yeah, you guys, I don't know. Sorry, I'm trying to grab a piece of paper to write something down. I don't know if anybody participated. ASAE, I think there were some today too, was doing a demo day. And Member Suite was on there with that service. And so the reason I bring that up is I don't know if you can backwards register and get access to the demos. They recorded them all. And so there were a lot of them in Member Suite. I don't know, Jennifer, I guess Member Suite and Wistia merged or something, which is why you got membersuite.wistia.whatever. But it was pretty cool. It's like, Dan, you remember the stuff that I did. And it was mostly Digitel that was doing it. And it's funny when you watch through the chat yesterday, it's like, does anybody remember Second Life?
Right, yeah.
That was the thing, right? It's like everybody wanted to have a little Second Life avatar.
That's
and you
right.
could wander the world and make friends and do God knows what else you wanted to do. It still looks a lot like that.
Oh, yeah.
But Jennifer, you're right. Some of the little bells and whistles that they added were a lot cooler now. You're not just wandering around anymore. You seem to have a little bit more direction and things like that. So that's cool. But
well, my expectations is Ready Player One. Ready Player One is my expectations. That's what I want to see. If you guys haven't seen that movie, you should see it. But it's that's the way it should be. Sorry, it just should be that way.
If you can hire Steven Spielberg to start developing meeting software, I think we'll be good to go.
Sounds good to me.
Funny.
But yeah, watch that movie if you haven't. It's really cool.
What's it called?
What was it? Ready Player One.
Ready Player One. Okay.
Yeah, J.J. Abrams, I think, and it was like a big thing, big deal back then. The book I hear is better than the movie, but it's hard to beat that movie. It's really cool. Well, thanks everybody. It's after 1 o'clock, and I just want to make sure everyone take care of everyone's time. And thanks for joining again. Scott and I will discuss like new dates, and we'll try to get something out to everyone. And glad that you guys are continuing to come to these and participating, and hope you find it helpful. I do. So
thanks for hosting.
Me too.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
Thanks,
everybody.
Carolyn.
Have a great day.
Bye. Bye, Jennifer. Thanks.
Stay safe.
See you guys.
Bye. Bye.